This all comes from the UK government recognising a real need for AI computational capability for the country, which we didn't have. When we've been putting this together, we partnered with HPE, and we've co-designed Isambard AI with HPE and with NVIDIA, who are providing the Grace Hopper GH200s. If everybody on Earth did one calculation every second, it would take 83 years, using everyone on Earth to do how many things Isambard can do in just 1 second. The site that we're using is at the National Composite Centre in Bristol, and they're a site that develops composite materials, next generation of technologies that we'll be building cars and planes out of. And so they will be using simulations to actually design their materials using AI techniques before they actually make them. So I think AI is going to have a huge impact on that kind of industry. Isambard AI is named after Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who was a very famous Victorian engineer in the UK. He was kind of the Steve Jobs of the Victorian era. He came up with lots of firsts. He designed the world's first iron-hulled, propeller-driven ship. He built tunnels, he built bridges. He was a real innovator, a real problem solver. And that's one of the places that I think AI is really going to have an impact. It's going to really help scientists and engineers come up with new ideas, come up with new techniques, and solve problems in a way that we just haven't been able to do before. So this really it's like the modern day equivalent of having Isambard right next to you, helping you and speaking in your ear and helping you solve problems.
What a great opening from Simon there. My name is Matt Harris. I have the privilege to run the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Organization across this region. I've been in the organization for 20 years, and it is an organization, if you're not familiar with us, that has standed for innovation. I'm sure many of you have had an HP printer or laptop at some point in your time, and you may even remember the HP Invent logo. So when we talk about innovation, why is it that AI is coined as this most disruptive of all of our eras? Is it the use case explosion that we've heard about during this summit? Is it because it's captured the imagination of so many so quickly, be it my son cheating on his homework for school, be it businesses to enhance productivity or create net new business lines, or is it around governments trying to take necessary steps for economic growth of the future? There is a race going on, a race for advantage, and more concerningly, you could argue, a race for good. When we think about AI, have an opportunity to use it for groundbreaking progress for some of society's biggest challenges. But at the same time, and we heard that in the previous talk, there will also be the race with bad actors who are looking to gain through ultra-sophisticated methods. So the race is on, the race is global, and in this race, there will be winners and losers. So despite being in the current election campaign, I'm going to try and give some credit to the current government, which is potentially a controversial thing to do if you read the press. But we have to applaud the government's current focus on AI and hope the next administration continues to bring the same level of investment to the sector. I think it was September 2021, the government published its National AI Strategy, setting a bold and ambitious 10-year plan to make the UK a superpower and a global leader in AI safety. The previous talk mentioned the first ever AI Safety Summit at Bletchley Park at the back end of 2023. That was a catalyst to bring policymakers, businesses, and academia together. But one of the things that did come out of that, and I was listening to the previous speech of was it a good or bad summit, was an ambition from that government that turned into real investment. The government understood that for AI to be used at scale, that needed organizations, academia, to have access to infrastructure, supercomputing infrastructure. And we'll hear firsthand from Simon on Isambard from the video and the impact it could make to all of us in this room. So the race is on, the race is fast. 3 years since that 2021 bill is a long time in technology. And others are arguably better funded, more prepared, and have an even bigger ambition. And if, again, listening to some of the regulators' discussions there around Singapore or the Middle East, we read about these on a daily basis. As a proud Brit, I have very high hopes for this country. I feel the obligation of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and the significant role we can play in advancing AI on these shores. We are a global leader in the ecosystem. We've got deep expertise in building some of the world's most powerful systems. And we have a significant research and development facility in Bristol focused on AI and supercomputing. It's why we are privileged to be undertaking some of the most ambitious projects in the industry and have invested significantly in the skills and the people and services to support you, our customers and potential customers, on your AI journey. But we're not alone at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. The world's leading AI-focused companies have significant presence here in the UK. They are tapping into the capital. They are benefiting from some of the supportive business and regulatory environment that exists. And summits like this are a catalyst to turbocharge the opportunities to grow out those ecosystems. But how does it translate to you, if, as an audience member, if you're sat there as an enterprise business thinking, well, I have challenges and I have opportunities. I have the fortuitous position to speak to customers in all walks of life every single day. And the good news for many of you sat there maybe concerned with this summit is, if AI were a football match, we are in the very first minute of the game. Most customers I speak to genuinely don't know where to get started when it comes to generative AI. And in fact, most Gen AI projects are focused in POC and focused on employee productivity. Very few are putting Gen AI into genuine business benefit, a new way of contacting potential customers, or increasing business lines to capitalize. So if that's the case, and there is a race that exists, we are early in it, we have some concerns that we also need to navigate. Repeated concerns, what we talked about in the last session, around AI governance and AI security. In speaking to customers, I'm hearing of a real lack of AI governance, and more worrying still, a lack of data governance for a lot of customers that exist today. We also have a skill shortage. One hospital I was speaking to last week has taken 6 months to try and formulate an AI governance policy. And we also have to think about the regulators in this country who are worried about the AI risk and who carries the can if AI fails. Also, there's a readiness around, is your customer, your end user, ready for it? If I think about that push and pull as anyone who goes into a hospital or a healthcare provider, do you want them to have AI diagnosing you, or do you want the physician or the doctor to do it? Are we pushing on those end users, or are we being pulled from demand? So more than anything, customers are saying to me, we need help with our AI strategy. We need to think about the entire AI ecosystem, and we need to turn to those with expertise and leverage the resources we have already in this country. So what is HPE's perspective and point of view? Well, it starts with data, your most valuable asset. AI-driven outcomes are only as good as the data fed to these models. Have having a solid data foundation can supercharge AI and is an essential step every enterprise needs to take on your AI journey. Secondly, hybrid cloud is essential for AI. Data, your data is widely distributed, so it needs to be connected everywhere on your data center premise, at the edge, and in the cloud. But the characteristics of AI, it is going to be one of the most intensive workloads we will ever have to build for. So it's imperative that your enterprise is hybrid by design and not by accident, i.e., we haven't started on a journey to cloud, or shadow IT is building a cloud-based mantra, and then we're catching up as IT organizations to support that. Those AI workloads also have to be cost-effective. They will have substantial and sustainable requirements around the computational resources they have. And the data sets combined with simplified experiences are needed for AI workflows. HPE's GreenLake Cloud platform, that's the plug, by the way, of the pitch, provides a unified experience across all stages of that AI lifecycle, from inferencing to fine-tuning and training of the models. So the final thing it'd say is the infrastructure matters. Infrastructure needs to be AI native. We need to have seamless, secure networking in the foundation. We need AI will need supercomputing tendencies, where the density of the compute to process large amounts of distributed data to be trained and learned. And this accelerated computing power will also need direct liquid cooling technologies to ensure it's sustainable. The final thing that really matters is the ecosystem. And I'm delighted within that to have our friends at NVIDIA. HPE has been delivering AI solutions for our customers for decades together, and we've achieved some amazing successes and partnerships, no better than the Bristol University Isambard project. So with that, I'm going to be joined by both David and Simon to talk about why that ecosystem matters and how you can leverage it. So, David, maybe if I can come and join you, thank you for coming to the AI Summit. You are the leader of NVIDIA across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think when we talk about the UK's ambition of being a superpower, what are your thoughts on our ability to do that, and how does that maybe compare to some of the other geographies that you look after?
Yeah, I'm sort of fortunate to be able to look across a very different group of countries, everything from the Middle East, obviously through to the European Union. I think the UK has great advantage in terms of having some of the best compute schools in the world based here. And the innovation that comes out of those schools is fantastic. And we're also seeing quite a vibrant startup community. And equally, with the likes of Isambard, we're seeing investment in platforms to enable those things to come together. I see the area where there's most sort of differentiation between countries is the scale of investment. So whilst Isambard is a significant investment, it is relatively small to other nations' investments in AI, particularly if you compare it to the Middle East, or you compare it to particularly North America or even Asia. And that's really one of the biggest challenges I think the development of AI faces, is that other economies are seeing the opportunity and investing at scale. And therefore, we need to think about how we react to that and how we can help the industries and enterprises in the UK and in Europe identify how they can take advantage of that and really scale to remain competitive internationally.
Yeah, well said. And I know we were talking before, one of the biggest challenges you have at the moment is around data center power to actually facilitate all of this investment. Bring this to life for us, David. What about enterprise use cases? What are you seeing? Maybe you can storytell the impact that you're seeing that's making right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Everybody is kind of looking at ChatGPT and the other major sort of, what I would say, are community models. And people, are experimenting with them, etc. And are they really using them in anger, etc. And the reality is we've gone through the first sort of 12 months of this sort of generative AI journey where people are just trying to understand what the technology can do. There's been generative AI startups who are really scaling very, very fast. But the vast majority of enterprises, to your point, what you mentioned earlier, are considering how to embrace this. How do they deal with that from a regulatory point of view, from a data safety point of view, etc., and how do they prepare themselves? But we're now on a very rapid journey where enterprises are realizing they need to take advantage of AI to remain competitive. And one of the core use cases is actually making your data available to your organization. It's amazing how much IP and knowledge is sat in data lakes across organizations that nobody can access. We work with organizations every day where we're just enabling them to share the data and put it in the hands of their employees, who can then do amazing things. The first use cases you always hear about for AI is cost transformation. Yes, we could put in a chatbot to do certain things, or we can automate certain things. However, the real value of AI is realizing the insight from the data that you have to generate new products and services, to be able to give you insight, to do breakthroughs in healthcare. That's really where the value of AI will come from, not just a cost transformational journey, which everyone seems to focus on. So I think there's a huge opportunity for industry to take. And I think very much from a European and a UK perspective, we have huge amounts of knowledge and tens of years of expertise in industry. We have developed some of the core industries that the economy is based on in Europe and the UK. That knowledge is hugely valuable. What we need to do is empower that knowledge with AI so we can turn it into new products and services and remain competitive internationally. And that's, I think, where the biggest opportunity is.
Yeah, well said. So our organizations have been partnering for a long, long time. What would you say to the audience, the key benefits that customers can get from working with an ecosystem like HP and NVIDIA together?
I think we all need to understand that this is actually quite hard to do. Everybody looks at it and goes, oh yeah, people use ChatGPT or they use one of the models, etc. This is quite simple from a human interaction point of view. But actually, the architecture underneath that is incredibly complex. We're building some of the world's biggest supercomputers, bigger than ever been built before, and working at that scale is incredibly complex. And you need partners like NVIDIA and HP to enable you to do that, not just from a hardware point of view, from a data center upwards, but also to the application layer, to the models, to the APIs you'll build to interface into those models. You need help to be able to do that. NVIDIA works right the way through that stack. We work with our partners like HPE, not only just to build the hardware and infrastructure, but also to build some of the software. We have something called NIMS, which is NVIDIA Inference Microservices, which is basically models and services we've built to make it easier for people to do this. Because unless you have vast data science teams and huge amounts of engineers, this is quite hard to do at scale. Therefore, you need to think about who you work with and how you work with them in order to enable your journey.
Everyone's not going to build a supercomputer, David. What would be your advice to people in the room of how they can get started?
Yeah, so there are two definite areas. I think you need to understand where AI brings the most value to you as an organization. How can it make most sense to you in terms of your products, your services? And perhaps there you want to focus on developing your own IP and your own models or using models to do that. However, there are lots of organizations around the world who are building AI into their IP, into their products. So you've got SAP, you've got ServiceNow, you've got Snowflake. Many, many others are building generative AI into their products. And as an enterprise, you can consume them and use them and get the benefits. So there's two distinct sides of this. It's about buy or build. And I think you need to understand where the most value is, etc. But be clear where your delineation is between what is critical to you as an organization, what brings your USP to the market, and how you can support and enable that with AI, versus how can I improve and automate my business to be more cost efficient and drive value from that.
I love the buy or build mantra and the organization USP and value point. So talking of build, brilliant to have Professor Simon Macintosh-Smith with us, who's the director of the Isambard National Research Facility down at the University of Bristol. For those that don't know, Isambard was a funded investment from the UK government and will be the UK's fastest supercomputer. It will be the centerpiece for the new National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource, built by HPE, operated by Bristol University, featuring 5,000 state-of-the-art NVIDIA superchips from NVIDIA. I think Isambard AI will be 10 times more powerful than the UK's current fastest supercomputer when it's fully operational at the end of 2024. So Simon, such an exciting project, brilliant to be partnering with it. I'd love to hear, I'm sure the audience would, your perspective on why Isambard AI will be so transformational for the advancements of AI in the UK.
Sure, thank you. So it's about this time last year, the government started to announce that they really wanted to do something about addressing the lack of AI capability in the UK, and that there was going to be some more funding available. At the time, there was very little AI capability. We had very few GPU clusters around the UK. There are a few systems, maybe of a few hundred previous generation GPUs, and that was it. And most of those were being used for other kinds of workloads, high-performance computing. They weren't dedicated to AI. So we knew there was going to be an opportunity with some new funding to build some new resources. And what we're doing with Isambard AI, building this really large system, it'll be one of the top 10 fastest in the world, actually, not just the fastest in the UK, but it really is competitive on the international stage, is we're going to be able to do things like train a large language model from scratch. And this is something that today we just couldn't do in the UK. And that feels like it's an important kind of sovereign capability to bring into the country. But not just training large language models, we'll also be able to do things like have thousands of different users all at once using the latest generation of GPUs and all of the latest software. That's going to be a huge step forwards, a massive increase over what we actually have in the UK today.
It's such an amazing potential. It's clearly a fantastic resource for academia. What about the rest of the UK, enterprises? How do we tap into this incredible capability you've built?
Sure. Well, the funding for the system actually comes from the government through our national research councils, but they want to be able to ring-fence some of the time on Isambard for UK companies. This will be, I think, focused more on SMEs and startups, but you'll be able to apply for time on Isambard. There'll be some calls that will come out. You'll be able to apply for time. It'll be for research purposes rather than, we won't be running commercial services. You know, we're a research resource, not a commercial resource. But that should be available. And at the moment, we're still bringing the system up, but probably early next year, you'll start to see calls and you'll be able to apply for some time on this amazing facility.
Exciting. Not only is it a powerful supercomputer, it's also a green one, and I think the number 2 on the green 500 list of sustainable high-performance computers. Tell us, why is it so energy efficient, and maybe a bit why sustainability is such an important topic when it comes to large systems and AI?
Yeah, we were really pleased about our achievements on the Green 500, by the way. If you've not heard of that, there's an international league table, and twice a year, all the supercomputers in the world, they get ranked by how energy efficient they are. And we've just had the first part of Isambard AI installed. That's now up and running. And it came in second on that list in the world. That means it's the second most energy efficient supercomputer that's ever been built. This is an amazing achievement using the latest technologies from NVIDIA. The university really cares about that, and we should all care about that too, for a couple of reasons. For us at the university, we have an ambition to reach net zero by 2030, which always sounded like a long way off, but it's really not now, is it? We're kind of marching our way towards 2030. So if we're going to build something like a big supercomputer resource, we need to make that as energy efficient as possible. And by adopting the very latest processors from NVIDIA, they're the most energy efficient processors on the market today. And by adopting the latest direct liquid cooled technologies, these are much more energy efficient than air-cooled. Liquid is more than 200 times more effective to remove heat than air is. So we've adopted that. And we've built this amazing modular data center technology with HPE, and that means you can closely integrate your infrastructure, your buildings, if you like, with the systems themselves to minimize losses. And because of the direct liquid cooling, we can also use these very, very energy efficient hybrid chillers, which actually most of the time use free air cooling, which means that we don't have to run chillers. They just blow air across radiators, which is very, very energy efficient. Only be on the hottest days that will we need to run chillers, a bit like your fridge in reverse. That makes the whole thing super, super energy efficient. We'll have a power usage effectiveness of about 1.07. That means that we'll only need about 7% overhead to chill the whole system, keep it cool, which is very, very low, much lower than most systems that exist today. So all of those things we really care about, partly for our carbon emissions, and also because of the costs. Power's got very expensive, hasn't it? It's only got a lot more expensive over the last few years. So we'd much rather spend money on people or more computing capability than on electricity.
Well said.
So making the whole thing as energy efficient as possible just makes sense.
Yeah. So it's powerful, it's sovereign, it's available, it's sustainable, and you've built it really quickly. And we're going to play a time lapse of in the background from remind us the dates to now, but maybe share with the audience how have you done this so quickly?
Sure. So what we're showing actually is a film. It goes from the end of November last year, so end of November 2023, until the end of March. So it's only a fairly short period. And this is a facility in the University of Bristol. It's near the M4 motorway. It's the National Composite Centre. And we basically have stolen some of our car park and repurposed it as a supercomputer compound. So we'd actually broken ground about a week before we put the camera in. And like most building projects, most of the time is in building the foundation, so digging things up and putting concrete in. The actual data center arrival will happen very quickly, and that's it. So it basically took 48 hours. So we went from an empty concrete pad on March the 12th this year, so just a few months ago, and the trucks turned up with the data center on the back. The next day, that was a Tuesday, on the Wednesday, the data center was craned onto the pad and assembled. That was basically 24 hours to build a data center. It flew through the air, so data centers can fly, which is quite scary. I was there watching it. It was a bit windy, but it was all absolutely fine, no dramas whatsoever. And then the next day, the first GPU system was wheeled into the modular data center. It was 48 hours from an empty concrete pad to a data center. And then 2 weeks later, the system was up and running and was reproducing all of the factory acceptance tests. It was basically about 2 weeks from an empty concrete pad to a working data center with a system that's in position 128 of the top 500 and achieving number 2 on the green 500. So you cannot do that. Even if we were modifying an existing building, you could not do it this quickly. So these approaches let you be much more agile, move really fast, and maybe turn locations that you wouldn't have thought of, like a bit of your car park, into a compound for a supercomputer. Yeah.
Who'd have thought the UK's fastest, one of the world's fastest supercomputers built in the car park? A final question for you both. Talent makes a difference here. Our CEO, Antonio Neri, American term, says every team member needs to have a minor in AI. But how important is talent in this? And what are you seeing, David, and maybe Simon to bring us home?
Yeah, I mean, it is critical. Data science talent is probably one of those critical assets that you will have on your journey. And it's one of the key barriers to success for any organization, both at a national and at an enterprise level. And as I mentioned earlier, we have some of the best computing skills both in the UK and Europe, but unfortunately some of the best talent tends to go either east or west and doesn't stay here. So one of the critical things is how can we create an ecosystem, an opportunity for that talent to stay in the UK and develop new organizations, new companies, or enhance those existing companies to transform themselves.
Simon?
The good news is, the view from the university, they're all over this. And the other good news is that students and young people really like AI. They're really drawn to it. So there's a lot of new courses, lots of new modules within existing courses adding AI. I think you see a lot more young people coming out with AI skills over the coming years.
Yeah, well, the phrase I stole from a professor is AI won't take your job, but someone who understands AI better than you will. Thank you to my guests for a fascinating discussion. I hope you all leave here with optimism for the UK's role in AI and supercomputing. We have the talent, we have the diversity, we have the facilities, and we have the conditions to really succeed. With that, enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.